Happy evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar. My name is Diane Solano. I'm an orthomolecular nutritionist. Love, love, love health and wellness. For me, if you don't have health, you honestly don't have anything. There are so many people out in the world that are walking around wishing that they got their health back. And this is the reason why I was so passionate about the health and wellness space and have been and will continue to be so for many, many years. So, with that being said, we have our monthly Ask the Doctor series. This is where I get to share one of my favorite mentors in the whole wide world who taught not only myself, but many other doctors around the world on how to implement natural strategies in the health and wellness space. So, I'm going to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Bob to this platform. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Bob Rakowski. He is a leading health expert in the field of natural medicine. He has lectured for over 25, probably 30 years now, around the globe on big stages, on podcasts, you name it, international. And he teaches to the doctors. If you're a practitioner out there, you probably know. Feel free to type in chat if you have ever attended an in-person lecture by Dr. Bob Rakowski. And it's an honor and a pleasure to have Dr. Bob here tonight. Any of you that are curious, you can type your questions in chat. He's been more than generous to share his time. Dr. Bob, thank you so much for being here. I know you lecture on many stages. I know you have a very big, very, very busy practice in Houston, Texas, where you treat very, very elite people, Olympians, but you also treat the everyday person that might be struggling with health and wellness. So I want to invite you on this call tonight, if you're attending live, type your questions in chat. This is why we're here. Knowledge is power, and we definitely want to access this kind of knowledge. Now, before Dr. Bob takes over the stage or the Zoom call, I do have to let everybody know this Zoom tonight, its purpose is to empower you and to educate you. This is for information. It's personal information coming from Dr. Bob and his research, but it is on you to decide how you want to proceed with your health. You are your own best health advocate. The conversations you have with your doctor, as the disclaimer says, you got to go to your doctor for everything. This is the world we live in, guys. So I do have to add that disclaimer tonight that this is for education purposes only. We're not here to treat or diagnose or any of that fun stuff. And with that being said, Dr. Bob, thank you so much for gracing us with your time. I'll take it over. It's all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Diane. Just for nostalgia purposes, yeah, I taught a seminar, 520 doctors in attendance. The title was The $1 Trillion Mistake, Redirecting the Misguided War on Cancer. And that picture was taken from stage, and that I had recorded essentially as a public service announcement, 4 hours of hard science, 250 scientific references, 520 doctors in attendance. And I had them part of the process where they would actually interject their data. And you'll see that there's consensus that the approach that we're taking is a very solid way to deal with cancer and give people the best chance to win. So this is a very, very timely topic. We've got so many people out there now that are struggling with cancer. And when you look at rich countries, isn't it interesting that rich countries have so many more cancer deaths? You'd think they'd be able to afford better nutrition, better everything. But the reality is there's so many different things that are going on in developed nations in terms of toxins, processed food, laziness, basically taking the things that we could do in life that we'd actually physically have to do and hiring someone or, turning it over to automation. So it seems that advancements in terms of modernization of the world may be promoting cancer. So quote from Deepak Chopra, more people will live off of cancer than die from it. I hope that changes in the future. But right now, there's pretty solid consensus that we've been going in the wrong direction. So this was the outline that I used in my 4-hour lecture. It's on my website, thedrbob.com. Go to resources. You can find multiple lectures on cancer. I will share this with you, something very, very similar. And the first thing we want to start out with is that literally it's statistically probable that every human, and they buffer that sometimes by saying 99.9% of people, every human makes cancer cells every single day of their life. In fact, the first Nutrition and Cancer conference that I lectured at, my definition of cancer was that it was a normal response to a toxic environment. Well, there's more to toxicity due to it, causing this challenge. And we're going to go over the major challenges and better than that, how we can prevent it, because prevention trumps cure. And then if we're dealing with it, how do we get rid of it? So here's some very simple, indisputable facts. A healthy cellular environment, we'll go over what that means, actually prevents cancer initiation, starting the process. If you damage the genetics, damage the DNA, if you repair it, well, then you're going to be okay. And cells always attempt to repair their damage. And by the way, there's a process by which a cell says, okay, I can't fix this. Let me check and see if I can survive with this. Oh, I probably can't. Let me kill the cell. And we literally have cells killing themselves all day long because of errors. And that's actually health. If you know you're going to be bad for the community, just step out. No reason to have you in the community. And then finally, even if you do have cancer, we should be able to control it, contain it, destroy it with a strong immune system. So, if we're going to repair our DNA, which is the biggest part of preventing the cancer, the cellular environment, then the DNA repair, and then ultimately the ideal immune system, we're going to talk about all three of these things. But you will repair DNA more efficiently if you have the right genetics. And by the way, most of us don't have the wrong genetics. And I'll even talk about these genes that have gotten a lot of press, like BRCA, BRCA1, BRCA2. Consider that Angelina Jolie had a double mastectomy and a partial hysterectomy, maybe even total. I think they took her ovaries just so they might be able to prevent cancer. The cellular environment, the perfect storm of cancer, low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, immune suppression secondary to chronic distress. We will go over that again and again and give you feels for how you can optimize that. And then finally, we're going to talk about age, which is a risk factor for everything related to death, lifestyle and the environment, the deadly quartet, which would include stress, toxins, malnutrition, and physical inactivity. And finally, the concept of epigenetics. So when we look at these genes, these BRCA genes, they have been estimated to have been around for over 60 million years in early primates. They can actually find it in fossil records. So this is not new in humanity. And we know that cancer is taken off and it's more of an environment. And in fact, about 90% environment we'll share with you, and only 10% genetic. So we all have a gene, and if we didn't, we'd be dead. The gene is called the P53 gene. And notice they call it the guardian angel of the genome. It protects every gene every single day. So the National Institutes of Health decided, you know what? Let's see what happens to mice if we eliminate this gene. So literally, they create mice that are known as P53 knockout mice. They engineer out this cancer protective gene, and nearly all of them get cancer, and all of them die early. They dramatically shorten their life expectancy. Now, how does this come into modern day? Anytime I put in a PubMed ID, go look at the bottom of the screen, PMID 387-09242. That's a 2024 publication. They found out that the spike protein, whether it was from SARS-CoV-19, SARS-CoV-2, or if it was from the shot, those will actually inhibit P53, the guardian of the genome. And so if you eliminate that gene, keep in mind, you do it in mice, 100% of them will get cancer. So this is an oncologist. He's on Rumble. Why is he on Rumble? Well, it turns out that he was censored on every other platform, but he asked the question, are the vaccines causing turbo cancer? So this was an individual that had cancer, had a few spots that were active. That was September 8th. We look at September 22. 14 days later, he got his vaccine booster. 8 days later, he had years worth of progression in that cancer, months to years. And we come to realize that the global death rate is up, excess causes of death, and a lot of cancer. So I do have a spike protein protocol. I might put a message in the chat afterwards with a link to that. But if we start looking at nature versus nurture, this was one of the most powerful studies ever. So they took a cancer cell, which has cancer genetics, that circle, the bigger round circle in the middle is called the nucleus. That's the genetic source for that cell. And they took a normal cell with normal genetics. They took the cancer genetics and put it into a normal cell. And by the way, if genes were the total factor that drive the offspring, then that cell, cancer genetics inside of a normal cell, should have created cancer cells. But it didn't. The environment was strong enough to keep the cell healthy. So when they took the cancer nucleus and put it into a normal cell, sorry, the cancer's nucleus into normal cell, created normal cells. So the environment trumped it. When they put a normal nucleus into a cancer cell, normal genetics, then cancer cells were the offspring. So here's the challenge. Whenever you have a bad environment, you create a bad outcome. So not sure why we're having a lot of people on mute, but I think Delina and Diana, you are co-hosts. So if you can mute them when they come in, that'd be awesome. So this was a study on what actually causes cancer. Environment, 90 to 95% genes, 5 to 10. And that still counts BRCA genes and other genes like that, where they're just not going to cause a problem in a healthy environment. So Dean Black, great PhD researcher over 35 years ago, gave a cancer lecture and he asked this question: how does a hurricane start? And the answer he was looking for was a hurricane starts when conditions are just right. How's a tornado start? When conditions are just right. How does a tsunami start? It starts when conditions are just right. Well, how does cancer start? It starts when conditions are just right. So he taught 35 years ago the conditions of cancer: low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, immune suppression, secondary to chronic distress. So I asked AI, I said, hey, I was taught this 35 years ago. Is this still accurate and complete? And AI said this: accurate, but cancer development also depends on genetic predisposition. Okay, fine. Carcinogen exposure, I get that, and other factors, but these five are still the core of what causes it. Now, interestingly enough, how does a hurricane start? When conditions are right for a hurricane. How does a hurricane go away? We change those conditions. This metaphor matches cancer as well. So here is, and by the way, modern science has added one more factor to Dean Black's 6. So low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, immune suppression, secondary to chronic distress, and they actually show increased cellular fluid pressure, which, by the way, when you accumulate fluid swelling, you compress the vasculature, the blood supply, and you get less oxygen delivery. So clearly that can cause a problem. Then there's additional mechanical stress. So this reference here says cancer cells require a supportive environment to grow, and that specific factor calls out low oxygen and high acid within that picture. You start looking at low acid, another picture of how it's contributing to cancer. And by the way, it can also contribute to metastasis and chemo resistance. When you start looking at nutrition, beautiful study here. You start looking at, and there's so many steps along the road to malignancy. In fact, there was a quote going back decades ago: at every step along the road to cancer development, nutrients can block or reverse the transfer to the next phase. So nutrition is absolutely critical to cancer prevention. When you start looking at low pH, this is a brand new 2024 publication, so many different mechanisms by which low pH, which is acid accumulation in the cell, they call it a global shield that actually protects cancer from the immune system. So when we alkalize the body, we can move that in the right direction. Very powerful language, this going back nearly 25 years. Conditions provided by the chronic inflammatory environment are essential, absolutely necessary for progression of cancer. And you look at the right of this picture, you see that anytime inflammation is prolonged within the body, so many different factors related to cancer and cancer death will happen. And by the way, chronic inflammation is related to all chronic disease. So what happens when there's an immune failure? They actually say that immune failure is only responsible for 80% of cancer. I think I can stretch that. I think I could make it 100%. They say it's not primary, but it's always involved in the secondary spread of cancer. So if the immune system can be a challenge, what challenges the immune system? These are the top 5. poor nutrition. That's also a part of factor. Cancer, chronic infections. Okay, that's a new one. Immunosuppressive medications will show the damage of that. Chronic stress. Yeah, that's what we said was suppressing the immune system. And then bad food, poor diet, right? So 2020, malnutrition, the leading cause of death on the entire planet. Wally Schmidt, he passed a few years ago, but he was a great mentor of mine. And he said, you know what? Whenever there's a chronic problem in the body that you don't seem to get to the bottom to, always look for three issues. Heavy metals, which, by the way, we all have, and those can be related to cancer, especially hormone related cancer. Food reactions that can cause problems in the gut, the microbiome, whole body inflammatory process, and stealth infections or hidden infections. We find those, we eliminate those, the body gets a whole lot better. A little comment on immunosuppressive drugs. This beautiful young lady, I'll speak to her in past tense because she died at age 23. Her name was Sasha McHale. She was the daughter of NBA Hall of Famer Larry Bird, of Kevin McHale, who played with Larry Bird. And bottom line is that her family came in to see me, not her. After she died, one of the family members came in, and I said, by the way, what the heck happened with Sasha? And they said, you know what? They gave her so many immunosuppressive drugs, she got pneumonia and died. Now, you try to find that on the net, it's hidden. And that might not surprise you if you've been paying attention to that. But I asked AI, tell me about these immunosuppressive drugs. And these drugs, here's right out of AI, increase infection risk, a leading cause of death in SLE, which stands for systemic lupus erythematosus. That's nearly anywhere from 29.2 to 43.9% of the deaths. Now, notice what AI said, because I asked specifically about Sasha McHale. Is it public knowledge that she died from immunosuppression from the drugs? And it said, no, that's not public knowledge. Here's what it said. Sasha's hospitalization in young age aligned with scenarios where aggressive treatment might have been used. So I heard from the family member, here, this was straight out of the horse's mouth. She died from pneumonia that she got from her immune system being so suppressed. What about stress and cancer? This is a 2022 PubMed citation. They finally published, that's the first time I saw it in the literature, that there's at least 3 different mechanisms by which stress contributes to cancer. Sugar feeds cancer. When they do a PET scan, they actually put radioactive sugar into the body. They look at the areas that light up. Why? Because cancer will eat 10 to 50 times the amount of sugar as normal cells. 10 different negative reasons why sugar can contribute to cancer. Friends don't let friends become diabetic. Friends don't let friends with cancer eat any sugar at all. And these ultra processed foods are loaded with sugar and additives and preservatives and garbage. And it's 73% of the US food supply. When you start looking at aging, eventually we're all going to give into it. No one gets out of this alive. But aging is very, very simply associated with accumulated DNA damage. Cancer is an accumulation of damaged DNA. So as age goes up, essentially every type of cancer goes up as well. I'll give a plug for Gannet or Mellucidum. I taught an anti-aging seminar, and this is one of the slides from it. So this, I think, was like 1999. That's how long ago that's going to go back. And that was the type of clip art that I used back then. And what I was showing is that most people start on their decline somewhere in their late 20s. And then by the time they're 70, they're nearly dead and taken 5 or 6 different drugs. But how can we live? Well, if you live healthy, eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right, you can live better longer. But what I can tell you is I know people in their 70s that can run around circles around most people that are 30. Why? Because they've taken care of themselves for all 70 of those years. So Ganoderma, by the way, is anti-aging, anti-cancer, and very, very powerful at it. I love this picture, one of my favorite pictures of all time. That conductor's name is Leonard Bernstein. And if you were in his band, he could get the most out of you. A great leader can get the most out of everybody on their team. He can find their unique talents and blend them all together. And supposedly he was the best of the best at that. And I love how happy he looks in that picture. Shouldn't we all have those moments? But reality is, our lifestyle choices are the conductors of our epigenetics, which control our genetics, the orchestra. And every time we make a good choice, we send a very good signal to our genes. When we make a bad choice,
Oh
that
no,
sends a bad signal
è duro
to
le farei.
our genes. Steve, we're going to ask you to mute yourself if you don't mind. So, the deadly quartet: stress, toxins, malnutrition, physical inactivity. And when we start looking, okay, where do these things come into play? You start looking at these pollutants, and they actually suggest that toxins have the highest weighted factor in the progression of cancer in the developed world. And there's so many of them shown there. By the way, they're also including diet as a toxin, lifestyle as a toxin. Certainly things like cigarettes and alcohol are obvious. Stress, we already talked about. Within that, they also showed insomnia as being a way to run stress hormones. I've told people for decades, if you're not running on rest and recovery, you're running on stress hormones. And those will suppress your immune system, increase your inflammation, and quite simply shorten your life. When you start looking at cancer risk, diet and obesity, 31% of cancer risk. Number one is actually smoking. Number two is obesity. Then we go alcohol, which, by the way, will contribute to obesity, intoxication, ultraviolet radiation for skin cancer, poor diet, physical inactivity. The poor diet, inactivity, and alcohol, all three of those can contribute to the excess body weight. And in triple combination would be a horrible cancer risk. Amazingly, physical inactivity can contribute to cancer by at least 5 different mechanisms. One, it actually increases your inflammation. Two, it causes insulin resistance, which means that more insulin is going to float around, more sugar is going to stay in the system. That's more likely to make you fat and inflamed. And by the way, when insulin's elevated, it increases something called sex hormone binding globulin. And that means you can be intoxicated by your own hormones. So that's a breast cancer risk for women, prostate cancer risk for men. You want to reduce the inflammation process, and the obesity will contribute to a reduced immune function, and also it will alter the gut microbiome. So all these things related. This is David Sinclair. He's one of the leading researchers on anti-aging. He says reverse tissue aging by epigenetic programming. He actually thinks we can all live to be about 150 years old. But very, very simply, what he says is it's misinformation. If our body knows that our DNA is damaged, it'll repair the DNA. If it can't repair the DNA, it'll actually kill the cell. Why? Because a sick cell can mutate and can ultimately kill you. So epigenetics are the major players to the point of 90 to 95%. We can turn genes on and off, or we can turn up or down their activity, all based on our choices. So the best choices you can make: eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right. I've got webinars on each of those topics. So remember, a hurricane starts when conditions are just right. A hurricane goes away when conditions are just right. Cancer starts when conditions are right. Cancer goes away when we change those conditions. Kelly Turner, her book, Radical Remission, all of the patients, she studied 1,700 patients, all given a death sentence, all beat it by radically changing their diet, by taking 100% responsibility for their health, by following their intuition. If you haven't developed your intuition, I want you to do that. Start now, because you never know when you might need it. Good time of prayerful peace, meditation, prayer, can all help with that. Good herbs and supplements with expert guidance, positive emotions, and increase positive, decrease negative. Those are huge for the immune system. Get social support, deepen your spiritual connection, and have a strong reason for living. The big event in Toronto this week, Etheric Alignment Center and Killing Cancer with Energy. This is the future of cancer therapies. And we have plenty of testimonials of people that have gone into these scalar wave rooms and have beaten cancer. I talked to 2 of them personally. So is that going to do all of it? Well, not for everybody every time. Will it help some people some of the time? Yeah, you will only know if you try it. Finally, medicinal mushrooms have been used as adjuncts for traditional cancer therapy in Asia, Japan, and China for over 30 years. They use it in combination with chemo and radiation. Why? Because it protects normal cells and enhances the killing effects of chemo and radiation. My favorite, Ganoderma lucidum, also known as reishi. Screenshot this, take a look at the PubMeds and see all the benefits there. And literally, reishi infused coffee, Ganoderma infused coffee will increase oxygenation through increasing something called nitric oxide, increase nutrients because it has all the fabulous 50, reduce the acid by enhancing liver, kidney, lungs, bowel, but also being the most alkaline food on the planet, anti-inflammatory by 15 different mechanisms, and enhances both aspects of the immune system, what's known as cellular and humoral or antibody immunity. And that's why there's so many published studies about its benefits and cancer. So, with that said, that's what I have to share in terms of the hard science. And if anybody has any questions at all, now is a great time to ask them.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Such amazing information. I love how you're always pulling out the latest data and things that we've known for years, but now are actually showing up in third-party studies, published medical journals. That's what we know them to be. And it's so exciting to see that. We do have a question in the chat. And by the way, if you have questions, guys, this is your chance to ask. Dr. Bob, we have a question here. Has someone here put in the chat that they had prostate cancer? He went into remission and now it's back. What is your opinion?
Um, well, we want to get rid of it again, right? So, all options are available. When it goes away and comes back, that's usually a worst case. That means it's a failed medical therapy. I don't know if they had radiation, chemo, hormone blocking, etc. Again, we don't want to diagnose, treat anything like that. I would suggest go listen to my 4-hour course on nutrition and cancer. Within that, I talk about very specific prostate measures, prostate specific value. You know, again, it's much, much, much more complicated when it's a recurrence. So I don't want to mislead anybody believing that it's going to be super easy, just do this and you're going to be fine. In fact, I never want to tell people that or give them that impression. But it justifies digging deep into that, finding out what's been done and what is the next best step. Go to my website, thedrbob.com, go to resources. You can listen to that 4-hour course, 250 scientific references. I can send the YouTube link to you. You can download it. I also have a summary of reversing the perfect storm of cancer and radical remission. So, there's plenty of evidence there. And if you want more help, I certainly could do a consult. Now, with that said, um, you know, we probably actually it was from someone in Canada, so I would have to connect with someone there to help them with nutrients. I was thinking out loud as I was going through that. But reach out to me. Let's figure out that. That would be, by the way, a paid consult, right? Because that's one of my other ways of making a living is actually diving deep and doing all that I can to help people with serious circumstances.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. And by the way, Dr. Bob, can you repeat your website again?
Sure, there's a couple of them. thedrbob.com. It could be thedrbob.com or it could be drbobrakowski.com. Maybe I'll type them in the chat.
Sure. And just for those that have asked me in the past, Dr. Bob does do consultations. If you're not in Houston, Texas personally, then you can do a Zoom consult. And I know he does offer a special discount rate for our community that join these webinars. I believe it's 150 for a consult with him and review your blood work and things like that, just to know that that is out there should you want it. But it's really about getting the information and asking the right kinds of questions. We do have another question here from Jeff. Please speak on neurotropics, lion's mane, and aniracetam for brain health.
Well, nootropics are a huge topic right now. And, you start looking at what do people want? They want a better brain. But I have a bias. I have a bias towards having a brain work better by creating a better brain, a healthier brain. And what I've taught for decades is the brain is the most nutrient dependent, energy dependent, stress vulnerable, toxin vulnerable system. So a lot of these nootropics, they nourish the brain, they detoxify the brain, they alkalize the brain, they clear off chronic infection. Some of them are very specific towards different levels of neurotransmitters. For instance, nicotine is getting a lot of press. Nicotine is a very powerful dopamine agonist. I certainly wouldn't get it through cigarettes or tobacco, but you can actually, there's, high level influencers do a little bit of nicotine through maybe a patch or a gum and they feel their brain focus up. Better nicotine, lion's mane, Ganoderma. Why? Because these are medicinal mushrooms, strong, proven health benefit. And not only does it have that brain benefit, it has whole body benefit, immune benefit, anti-inflammatory benefit, alkalizing benefit. So all of those are good. But Jeff, we want to make a better brain. I literally, in fact, I could put it in the chat. I created a new brain lecture on my YouTube channel where I go through stuff like that. And the biggest challenge is with me and YouTube, anyways, is I am profoundly censored. I still hadn't bounced back from the censoring of 2020. I was one of those guys that was sharing information that they said, yeah, we don't want people to know that. Don't be telling them they can get healthy with anything but a vaccine. So that really got me a lot of strikes. But let's see what I can find here.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. And in the meantime, I will say that yes, accessing Dr. Bob's information, and thank you, Dr. Bob, you're so generous with what you share out into the world. Absolutely complimentary. Just go to his YouTube channels. You're going to get a ton of truth there. And it's all backed up by science and data. And I think that's why you have a lot of practitioners that follow you after 20 years to this day. I know a lot of them reach out to you asking you questions because you're always updating your research. You're always looking for the evidence. And it's that critical thinking that is very, very important when it comes to making informed decisions. It's really about an informed decision. What are the risks versus the benefits? That's a case by case situation. So as Dr. Bob pulls that up, I know Nav was asking if it was possible for you to show that slide with all the PubMed IDs on Ganoderma lucidum. That's always, and by the way, if you've enrolled officially through the webinar link, you will get a 48-hour replay for anybody that wants to watch the replay. You probably have friends and family here that might be struggling. We all know someone that could use a little extra deeper information outside of what they're getting from the conventional medical model. And it's always good to just be informed. So thank you, Dr. Bob, for that. There you go, guys. There's the slides. You can take a picture of that. Published medical journals. Those are third-party proven science, one taken over for many, many years that are now actually showing the data behind all these claims. It's not company specific. It's specific to the medicinal mushroom, which is Ganoderma lucidum, also known as Reishi. So let's see. Can you put your website in the chat? There it is in the chat. Perfect. Dr. Paul Charlton here is asking, could you please touch on best heavy metal detox techniques / traditional or infrared saunas / supplements, please?
Sure. So when we start looking at the best way to detox metals, the body makes something called metallothionein proteins. And the value of metallothionein proteins is that they actually can clear metals out of anything. One of the things about metallothionein proteins, you have to be a good methylator. And if you're familiar with the term methylation, we actually methylate over 1 billion times every single second. Many people are deficient in zinc. Why? Because zinc is used to chelate the heavy metals. It's used as an aromatase inhibitor. It's used to make hydrochloric acid. It's used as part of the immune system. And so we're zinc deficient. We're also copper toxic, which makes us zinc deficient. So we're not making what we need to clear these heavy metals, first and foremost. Secondly, the environment is heavier in heavy metals than it's ever been. So if we can bring that up to speed, and that means we increase methylation factors, which are the B vitamins, especially B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B9, B12, magnesium. I guess B6, B9, B12, magnesium are the most important ones there. They need a methyl donor like methionine, and sometimes people that are on a protein deficient diet don't make it. They can't be over oxidized or inflamed, otherwise that starts depleting those groups, on and on. So the way we increase metallothionein proteins, the company Metagenics did what was called a proteomic research project a few decades ago. And their product, Ultra Clear Renew, has a blend of nutrients that taking it for 2 weeks increases metallothionein protein by 40x. That's 4,000%. That's a big number. Ganoderma lucidum, also known as Reishi, 2-week supplementation. I think it's a gram a day, 1,000 milligrams a day. I think it was Ganoderma lucidum, not the spores, increased metallothionein proteins 800%. Vitamin C is a chelator, calcium is a chelator, garlic's a chelator, cilantro is a chelator, chlorella is a chelator. So these are ways to go after it. Medically, they can actually infuse things like EDTA, DMPS, DMSA straight into the veins. That's a little harder. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier. But those are all ways to clear and chelate heavy metals. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Fantastic information, great pathways, and this is all how the human body works. We know that the human body can be infinitely complex, but good decisions, good health, the basics like Dr. Bob addressed are universal. And those basics will never, ever, ever go away. It doesn't matter how much AI and how much tech is out there, the basics of the human body is never going to change. And that's what this call is about, is to remind everyone of the basics to take care of you. Because when you can do that, that's when you can show up powerfully into the world. I don't see any more questions. Or actually, maybe we do. Let's see. 1,000. Yeah, Dr. Paul, 150,000 new chemicals we've created in the last 100 years. So true. And that's just the way the world works, right? We have to start taking care of ourselves, making better decisions. And no more questions in the chat. This is your chance now to ask. And just letting everybody know that every month we'll be doing an Ask the Doctor for our community. Every month it'll be on a new different topic. If there's any topic recommendations, suggestions, please let us know. A lot of us, you know who we are. Let us know, but please keep an eye out. You will get an invitation for next month's in September. I believe Dr. Bob may be coming to the market again in September and again in November. We're going to be doing some live events. So if you are in the Greater Toronto area and you'd like to meet Dr. Bob in person, we'll also be informing you through that communication channel as well. So we're excited because this is what we want to offer our community is wellness, support, community, and real life situations where you can help your body get better, faster, stronger. Anything else from anyone? And if not, we will bid everybody a fabulous night. Anything in closing, Dr. Bob?
Well, always. Yeah, one thing that I will tell you, I had a stage 4 pancreatic cancer patient that was sent home to die. We put him on a protocol and he turned around so fast. He's on my YouTube channel. Literally within 2 weeks, I asked him if there's 0 is no change on 100 is perfect ideal. How much better are you feeling? He said 90%. And I said, wow, that's amazing. What advice do you have for future patients? He says, never lose hope. And I hate to tell you this, but too often I have people that have gone through cancer consults medically and all the hope has been sucked out of them. The doctors tell them we don't want to create false hope. So they say, well, you've got a 1% chance of living, a 99% chance of dying. So why don't you get your will in order? And I say, hey, 1 in 100 beats this. Why not you? Why not now? And that's always my message. I have seen people from hospice turn it completely around and live for decades after with people making better choices. And Diane, you really wrapped that up so nicely when you said, when we make better choices, we create a better life. And we can lead you to those better choices. Diane, I'm going to turn it back to you because you wrap things up so wonderfully always.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. So, just for the record, again, we will be doing this monthly. If you want an appointment with Dr. Bob yourself, you want to discuss something one-on-one, you can reach out to him, thedrbob.com. Natural Medicine Center is his center in Houston, Texas. So that's very easy to find. If not, connect with one of us. We will definitely get you the information. The replay will be available for 48 hours and it'll be taken down. And last but not least, this is a community that cares. And we love simple, easy, and effective ways to help people make better choices. And that's why many of us truly enjoy, our Reishi beverages is simply because it's simple, it's easy, it's effective, it's cost effective. And I can't think of any better way as a practitioner where we're actually changing lives around the globe doing this. So with that being said, please don't stay quiet. You are your best health advocate, and we'll see you on the next call. Bye, everyone, for now. Thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bob.
You're welcome. Bye for now.